Everyone at the petrol pump saw the old stray dog lying quietly in the corner, dirty, weak, just trying to stay out of the way. Then an officer pulled up. He looked at the dog like it was garbage, but what he did next shocked everyone watching, and within minutes, karma came roaring back harder than anyone could have imagined. Before I tell you what happened next, can I ask you something small? If you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, please tap that subscribe button. Most people watch and move on, but your one click could help this message reach someone who really needs it. It was one of those painfully hot days, where even the wind refused to move. The sun felt aggressive, like it wasn't just shining, it was punishing everything under it. You could hear it in the heat rising off the asphalt, see it in the distant blur of the road, and feel it in the way people sighed as they stepped out of their air-conditioned cars, instantly regretting every second spent outside. It was the kind of heat where even the birds stopped singing. The petrol pump, located off a busy highway, was buzzing like usual, cars pulling in and out, families stopping for drinks, office workers topping off their tanks, delivery drivers taking a break. The same routine, same people, same chaos, but there was something different if you paid close attention. Something lying just outside the main area, near the far edge of the property, where the wall met a rusted-out storage shed. A dog, not barking, not begging, not moving much, just lying there, still, like he didn't want to be noticed, or had long since accepted that no one ever would. He was curled up in a patch of shade, cast by the station's billboard. It wasn't much, and it shifted as the sun moved, but he stayed there anyway, adjusting only when the heat got unbearable. His fur was once golden, but now it was faded and grayish, caked with dust and matted in uneven clumps. Flies buzzed around his ears, his ribs pressed against his sides, rising and falling slowly, like each breath required effort. No collar, no tag, no owner in sight. Some called him a ghost dog, not because he was scary, but because he was always there, and somehow still invisible. A few of the workers at the petrol pump had noticed him over the past few months, especially Adil, the guy on the night shift. Adil had a soft spot for animals, even though he couldn't afford to keep one himself. He said the dog reminded him of one he had as a kid. Adil called him Baba. The name stuck. Every night, Adil left a small bowl of water near the wall. Sometimes, if there were leftover sandwiches or a bit of roti, he'd place it quietly beside Baba, talking to him in a soft voice as he backed away. He never tried to pet him, never tried to pick him up or force him to come closer. He just let him be, because some creatures have been through so much. Even kindness feels unfamiliar at first. Other workers weren't as patient. Some ignored Baba completely. A few grumbled that he looked sick or might scare customers. But no one ever did anything about it. Until one day, someone did. It was a Wednesday, the kind of day you forget, unless something unforgettable happens. The heat was even worse than usual. The sun was directly overhead, baking the ground. Customers were irritable. Engines overheated. Everyone just wanted to fill their tanks and leave. Baba was in his usual spot, his body half in the shade, half exposed to the sun. His eyes were open, but distant. He wasn't sleeping. He wasn't really awake either, just existing, like he'd done every day since he'd been left there. Some said he used to belong to the old mechanic, Samir Bai, who passed away from a heart attack a year ago. They said after the funeral, the dog just stayed, like he was waiting for someone who would never come back. Others said he'd been dumped there in the middle of the night by a passing car. A CCTV clip showed a blurry shape being tossed from a van, but it was too grainy to tell. Whatever the truth was, Baba stayed. And on that Wednesday afternoon, something changed. A white animal control van pulled into the station. It wasn't marked in bold letters, just a small city logo on the side door. Dust clung to the tires, and the windows were rolled down, letting the heat pour in. Out stepped a man. He was broad-shouldered, wearing dark sunglasses and a uniform that looked like it hadn't been washed in weeks. He moved with purpose, boots heavy on the pavement, each step louder than the last. People noticed him right away. He wasn't friendly, didn't smile, didn't nod. He just scanned the area like he was on a mission. The moment he spotted Baba, his face changed. You know that look some people get when they see something they think is beneath them? That mix of disgust and anger, like the very existence of the thing offends them? That was the look. He muttered something under his breath. No one close enough could hear it, but his tone was sharp. Adil wasn't on shift that day. The only ones working were Noman, the station manager, and a new guy named Fahim, who barely knew Baba even existed. A few customers sat under the umbrella shade near the store entrance, drinking sodas, chatting. One of them noticed the man walking toward the corner and said, "He better not touch that dog." But it was too late. The officer, Imran Malik, as his name tag read, walked straight toward Baba with no hesitation. He didn't stop, didn't check on the dog, didn't speak gently. Instead, he reached the edge of the wall, leaned forward, and then, without warning, he kicked him, hard, not a light tap, not a nudge, a full force. No regret boot straight into Baba's ribcage. The sound that came out of the dog was unlike anything anyone there had heard. It wasn't a bark, it wasn't a yelp, it was a broken, panicked scream. Short, sharp, full of pain and fear. Baba tumbled sideways, struggling to get to his feet. His legs gave out once, then again. He finally limped behind the stack of tires, his body shaking. The station went silent. For a full 3 seconds, no one moved. Then Noman ran forward. "What are you doing?" he shouted. Imran looked at him like he was the problem. "It's a stray, probably diseased, laying around like it owns the place. I'm doing you a favor." Noman stepped between him and Baba. "He's harmless. He's been here for months. We take care of him." Imran shrugged. "I've got orders. Complaints about stray animals. I'm here to deal with it by kicking it." Noman's voice cracked. Imran said nothing, just turned, walked back to his van, and opened the back door, where a rusty cage sat bolted to the floor. But before he could turn back toward Baba, something changed. Across the lot, in a car parked under the tree line, someone had been filming. A teenage girl named Zoya. She had just come to the station with her older brother to grab a bottle of water. She was sitting in the passenger seat, scrolling through Instagram, when she noticed the scene. She saw the officer, she saw the kick, and she hit record the moment Baba screamed. She didn't know what she was going to do with the video, only that it needed to exist. That someone had to see it, because this wasn't okay. It wasn't normal, and it wasn't the first time. And as she sat there, shaking, tears welling up in her eyes, she whispered to herself, "They always get away with it. Not this time." Zoya's hands were trembling. She couldn't believe what she had just seen and recorded. The way the officer's boot had connected with the old dog's side, and how no one stepped in soon enough. It was like the world had paused and forgotten how to care. Her brother, Faison, came back to the car with the water bottle. One look at her face, and he froze. "What happened?" he asked, glancing around. Zoya turned the phone toward him, tapped play. He watched, his jaw tightening as the video showed the kick, the cry, the man's cold face. "We have to post this," she said quietly. "People need to see." Faison nodded. "Send it to me. We'll do it together." Back at the station, the officer was now arguing with Noman. "Listen," Imran said, voice dripping with arrogance. "You've got customers here. That dog is a liability. One complaint is all it takes for health inspectors to shut this place down. I'm doing you a favor." But Noman wasn't backing down. "That animal never bothered anyone. Not once. And I don't know who trained you, but where I come from, we don't treat living things like garbage." Imran didn't respond. He just grunted, looked around at the silent onlookers, then turned back toward his van. As he opened the cage again, Baba, still cowering behind the tires, let out a small, pained whine. Not loud, but it broke through the tension like a crack in glass. That sound, that tiny sound, it triggered something in everyone watching. The silence shifted. The discomfort turned into something else, something stronger, something like anger. Zoya and Faison were now walking toward the scene, their phones still rolling. Behind them, an elderly man, who had been sitting under the umbrella drinking soda, stood up and walked over. "Beta," he said to Noman. "Should I call the press?" Noman looked surprised. "Press? Yes, my nephew works for Geo News. You think I'm going to let this man hurt that poor creature again? I saw the whole thing." Imran glanced around, suddenly noticing how many phones were out. His face changed. "What are you all doing?" he snapped. Zoya didn't flinch. "Documenting." "For what?" he barked. "For justice," Faison said flatly. Imran suddenly seemed a lot less confident. He muttered something under his breath, slammed the cage door shut, and marched back to the driver's side of his van. The engine sputtered to life. He reversed fast and drove out of the petrol station without another word. But the damage was done, and the story was only just beginning. That night, Zoya posted the video on X, formerly Twitter. Faison uploaded a version to Instagram. The uncle, he sent the video directly to his nephew at the news station, along with a voice note explaining everything. Within an hour, the footage had thousands of views. By morning, it had exploded. "Animal control officer caught on camera kicking injured stray dog." The headlines read, "Old dog abused at petrol station sparks outrage across Pakistan." News anchors replayed the video. Radio stations took calls from listeners, venting their frustration. Even celebrities began weighing in, calling for justice. People weren't just angry, they were hurt, because Baba didn't look like a threat. He looked like someone's pet, someone's friend, someone who'd once mattered, but was forgotten. The video touched something in people. Maybe it was the way Baba didn't fight back. Maybe it was how calm he had been before the attack. Maybe it was how nobody had ever stood up for him before. Until now. Whatever the reason, the floodgates opened. Animal rights activists began sharing similar stories. Photos of other injured dogs, complaints that had been ignored, people who had tried to speak up before, but were shut down. And slowly, the story grew into something bigger. Meanwhile, at the petrol station, Baba was still there. He hadn't moved from behind the tires. He hadn't eaten. He was too scared. The trauma had triggered something deep inside him. Noman made calls to shelters and rescue groups, but it was Adil, off-duty that day, who showed up first. The moment he heard what happened, he jumped on his bike and rode to the station. When he got there, he didn't say a word. He just crouched down, unwrapped a piece of chicken from a napkin, and placed it gently near the tires. "Baba," he whispered. "Baba, come. It's me." The dog didn't move at first, but then slowly his head emerged. His tail gave one cautious wag. He took a shaky step, then another, and finally, he reached Adil, rested his chin on his lap, and closed his eyes. That's when Adil cried, not because he was sad, but because Baba still trusted someone, and that was more powerful than anything else. Adil stayed there with Baba for over an hour. He didn't try to move him, didn't try to clean him or leash him. He just sat, let Baba rest his head on his lap, let him feel safe again. Other customers passed by. Some slowed down, staring. Some got out of their cars to ask what had happened. Noman told the story again and again. Each time, the reaction was the same. Shock, then anger, then disbelief that someone in a uniform, someone trusted to protect, could act like that. Later that evening, a rescue group called Paws of Hope arrived at the station. They had seen the video. They had been tagged in thousands of comments. 2 women stepped out of the van, Amna and Zara, both longtime animal activists. They brought a crate lined with blankets, soft food, and water mixed with rehydration salts. They approached Baba slowly. One of them crouched down, holding out her hand. To everyone's surprise, Baba didn't growl, didn't back away. He looked up at Adil, and Adil gave a small nod, as if to say, "It's okay." Baba let them touch him, let them lift him gently into the crate. The moment the van door closed, Adil stepped back. His eyes were red, but he smiled. "He's going somewhere better," Amna assured him. "Somewhere safe." That night, Baba was taken to the shelter's clinic. The vet ran tests, checked for fractures, cleaned old wounds. He was underweight by nearly 15 kilograms. His back legs were weak from a previous untreated injury. He had several broken teeth and cataracts beginning to form, but he wasn't aggressive. Not once did he bite or bark. Even when in pain, Baba just endured. "He's been hurt before," the vet murmured, "but he's still gentle." That's rare. The shelter posted updates online, and the public followed closely. Every photo, every progress video got thousands of likes. Donations poured in. Volunteers offered to help. People asked if he'd be up for adoption. But Paws of Hope had something else in mind. They weren't going to just rehome Baba. They were going to turn him into a symbol, a face for every unheard bark, every dog left behind, every moment of cruelty that went unseen. Meanwhile, the backlash against Officer Imran Malik intensified. Within 48 hours of the video's release, his department received over 50,000 emails demanding suspension. An online petition hit 100,000 signatures. Celebrities tweeted with hashtags like #JusticeForBaba and #ProtectStrays. News channels covered it in primetime slots. Talk shows invited animal behaviorists, legal experts, and rescue workers to weigh in. One woman, an attorney and dog lover, stood up live on air and said, "We don't just need consequences for this officer. We need laws. Clear, enforceable laws that say, you hurt a living being, you pay." And that message hit home. Suddenly, people weren't just angry at one man. They were questioning everything. Why there were no proper stray protection laws. Why abuse was so easy to get away with. Why silence was so common. And under all that pressure, the system began to crack. 3 days after the incident, Imran Malik was placed under investigation. He denied everything at first, claimed the footage was unclear, said the dog charged at him, and that he had acted in self-defense. But too many witnesses had spoken up, too many angles, too much truth. A week later, he was suspended without pay. A month later, he was terminated from the department, permanently, and Baba, he was recovering better than anyone had expected. The quiet, shaking stray that once hid behind tires, was now slowly learning to walk again without limping. He still flinched at sudden movements, still hesitated when new people got too close, but he was eating, drinking, lying in the sun without fear. Zoya and Faison visited him at the shelter. So did Adil, every week without fail. He brought him boiled chicken, treats, and sat beside him in the grass, telling him about the petrol station and how quiet it had been without him. "You're kind of famous now, Baba," he laughed once. "More people care about you than any celebrity." And it was true. Baba's face was on posters now, on social media profile pictures, even on a billboard near the very petrol station where everything started. It read, "Some heroes don't bark, but they still speak for millions." And with that, the world turned a little more sharply. Stray abuse was no longer something people scrolled past. It became a movement, a demand. The government introduced a bill requiring animal control units to undergo certified training, install dash cams in enforcement vehicles, and respond to public complaints within 24 hours. The law was named Baba's Law, and that was how one silent dog, abandoned, forgotten, kicked, sparked a change that thousands had been praying for. But no one had expected to come from him. For most viral stories, the spark burns fast and then fades. But this one kept burning. In the days after Baba's video went viral, something began to shift, not just online, but in real life. People didn't just share the clip and move on. They started asking questions. They started remembering the strays they passed every day. The limping dog near the underpass, the mother with her pups near the grocery store, the skinny one outside the bakery who always waited without barking. And slowly, this story, Baba's story, became personal to everyone. The shelter where Baba was staying was overwhelmed with visitors, not for adoption, but to help. "I saw the video," one woman said, holding a bag of dog food. "I've never owned a dog, but I want to do something." A group of school kids showed up with drawings of Baba and donation jars they had placed in their classrooms. One little girl, maybe 6 or 7, walked up to Amna and said, "He was hurt, but he didn't bite back. He's a good boy." Amna knelt down, tears in her eyes, and whispered, "He's the best boy." But while the world outside was moving fast, inside the shelter, Baba's recovery was slow. That's the thing about trauma. It doesn't heal like a cut. It's not visible. You don't get a cast or stitches or a bandage. You just live through it every day. The vet said Baba's ribs were bruised, but nothing broken. Physically, he'd heal. But emotionally, that was different. For the first week, he barely moved. He ate only when hand-fed. He flinched every time a door closed too loud. And the worst part, he didn't wag his tail. Not once. Even Adil noticed. "He used to wag when I brought him water," he said quietly, staring through the shelter gate. Even when he was tired, he'd wag. A week passed. Then too, the city's attention was shifting again. Politics, weather, celebrity drama. But some people didn't forget. Zoya made it her mission to post weekly updates on Baba's recovery. She gave him a hashtag Baba the Brave. And every photo she posted got thousands of likes, thousands of comments. People asking, did he eat today? Did he walk? Did he wag? And then, one evening it happened. It was raining lightly, not heavy, just that soft drizzle that made everything feel slower. Adil was visiting again. He sat under the shelter's small tin roof, with a paper bag in his hand. "Baba," he called out, "guess what I brought?" From around the corner, Baba peeked out. Adil held up a box of grilled chicken, still warm. "Only for you, champ." And as Baba walked up, slower than usual, limping slightly on his right leg, he stopped, looked at Adil, and wagged his tail. Just once, but it was enough. Adil didn't cry this time. He laughed, a deep, relieved laugh that echoed down the hall. And the staff cheered, because they knew that single-tail wag meant more than any medicine ever could. Meanwhile, the city council had a problem on its hands. The footage had raised serious concerns about how animal control officers were trained, or not trained. There were no real rules, no certification, no emotional screening. They could carry sticks, they could use force, and most didn't even have to pass a behavioral exam. The council called a meeting, open to the public, and you can guess who showed up. Dozens of people, holding photos, placards, stories of strays they'd cared for, stories of dogs that disappeared after a van came by. One elderly man stood up and said, "They took mine, right from my gate, said it was policy. I never saw him again, and he was just sleeping in the sun." The meeting lasted 6 hours, and at the end of it, one thing was clear. People weren't going to be silent anymore. Back at the shelter, something else was happening. The staff had started letting Baba walk in the outer yard with a leash. At first, he resisted. The rope reminded him of something he didn't like, but Amna switched it to a soft red ribbon instead, and with that he walked. Not far, not fast, but with purpose. A few steps, a pause, then more. They clapped like he had finished a marathon. Zoya posted a slow-motion video, captioned, "You kicked the wrong dog. He's walking now, and we're all walking with him." Then came the news that stunned even the shelter staff. A journalist had uncovered complaints from 5 years ago about Officer Imran Malik. Turns out, Baba wasn't the first. He was just the first one someone filmed. There were reports, hidden, buried, of excessive force. A cat left injured after a raid. A puppy tossed into a van and found dead the next day. The department had ignored them all. Now, they had no choice. The officer wasn't just suspended anymore. He was being investigated by the city's legal team, and activists filed for criminal animal abuse charges. Finally, consequences. But justice is only part of healing. The real healing that came on a quiet morning, 39 days after Baba was rescued. Zoya arrived at the shelter early. She brought something with her, a blanket, the same one her old dog, Rusty, had used before he passed. She laid it in the grass, near the tree where Baba liked to lie. And then she sat. No camera, no phone, just sat. Baba walked over, not slowly this time. He sniffed the blanket, then her hand, and then he lay down, right beside her. Zoya whispered, "You're not alone anymore. Let's pause for a moment and think." This whole journey, this whole wave of change, started with something so small. A glance, a phone recording, a kick, but it unfolded into a movement, because when enough people decide that pain won't be ignored anymore, even the smallest voice can echo through a nation. And Baba, he was proof that dignity can be restored, even after cruelty. That kindness leaves fingerprints deeper than cruelty ever could. He wasn't just a dog anymore. He was a survivor, a symbol, a reminder that no one, human or animal, deserves to suffer in silence. It was the kind of day that made you believe in full circles. The city had organized its first ever Voices for the Voiceless animal rights rally. A small event at first, just a few tents and stalls set up in a park near the city center. But word spread. By noon, the crowd stretched across the grass. Families, students, activists, people holding signs that read "Justice for Strays," "Love is a tail wag," and of course, #Baba the Brave. The organizers hadn't expected this kind of turnout. They brought speakers, veterinarians, foster coordinators, even local lawmakers showed up, trying to be part of the change. But no one expected what happened next. A hush fell over the crowd when the MC stepped on stage and said, "There's someone here today you all know. You've followed his story. You've cried for him. You've stood up because of him. And today he's here." Gasps, whispers, phones rose instantly, and from behind the side curtain of the stage walked Baba, not alone. Adil held the leash gently in one hand, his other hand steady on Baba's back. Baba's steps were slow, sure and proud. He wasn't limping. He wasn't flinching. His fur had grown back, golden and soft. His eyes were clear. The same dog who once hid behind discarded tires now stood in front of thousands of people, tail wagging. And in that moment, the entire park went quiet. Then it happened. One clap, then two, then an explosion of sound. Cheers, whistles, tears. Strangers hugged. Children screamed his name. Some people dropped to their knees just to see him up close. Adil leaned down and whispered something in Baba's ear. No one heard what he said, but Baba looked up and barked. Once, loud, proud, as if to say, "I'm still here." And that was it. The moment that broke the crowd wide open. People sobbed. People clapped. People believed. Because Baba wasn't just a symbol anymore. He was alive, thriving, free. The event ended with a surprise announcement. The new animal protection law, Baba's Law, had passed its final city review. It would now require strict certifications for animal control officers, immediate body cam recordings during all captures, mandatory shelter reports for every seized stray, public-facing complaint portals for citizens. It wasn't everything, but it was a beginning, and it was named after the dog, who refused to be forgotten. After the crowd dispersed, Baba sat beside Adil on the grass. Children came by to pet him. Teens asked for selfies. Zoya filmed him with tears in her eyes. But Baba, he just looked around quietly, like he'd seen this world at its worst, and now, for once, at its best. And for that one day, justice didn't just feel like a word. It felt real. It had a name, it had a face, and it had 4 paws. By the time the sun began to dip below the trees that evening, most people had already gone home. The banners were folded, the stage cleared, The echo of claps and cheers slowly replaced by quiet footsteps and the rustling of leaves. But Baba, he was still there, lying in the grass, head on his paws, watching people pack up, not afraid, not tense, just calm. And maybe that was the biggest miracle of all, because when you think about it, this wasn't just a story about a dog. This was a story about what happens when we stop ignoring pain, when we speak out, even if our voice shakes, when one video becomes a voice, and one voice becomes a movement. No one expected the dog at the petrol pump to change anything. He was just there, silent, forgotten. But in those 5 cruel seconds, when the boot rose and came down, something shifted, not just in Baba, but in us. We remembered how easily the voiceless are overlooked. We remembered that strength doesn't always bark or growl. Sometimes it just endures. And in enduring, it teaches us how to be better. Baba now lives in a foster home, not in a cage, not in a kennel, in a home, with a soft bed, a yard to stretch his legs, warm meals, and people who know his story and love him for it. He still walks slowly. He still carries old scars, but he no longer walks alone. Adil visits often. Zoya stops by with her camera. Sometimes neighborhood kids come just to sit beside him. They don't ask him to play. They just sit, quietly, like they know he's already done enough. Maybe Baba doesn't understand hashtags, or rallies, or laws, but maybe, deep down, he knows one thing. That something changed. That someone cared. That for the first time in a long time, he mattered. And sometimes, that's all any of us really want. To matter, to be seen, to be safe, to be loved. So the next time you see a stray lying on the side of the road, or hear someone say, "It's just a dog," remember Baba. Remember that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it limps quietly toward kindness, one slow, trembling step at a time. If this story moved you even a little, don't scroll, subscribe.